It's 2 o'clock, we'll convene a meeting, and that's the necessary roll. The minutes of the February meeting were in the packet. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February meeting.
I'll second.
Who made the motion?
Motion?
Oh, you made that?
I'll make the motion.
Yeah.
You're
Okay,
second.
there.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public comment?
I have something.
Kathy?
First of all, for the 1000th time, please speak up. And I was really surprised when I walked here and saw all these people here. Thanks for coming.
I attended the January board meeting where the board voted for their officers. There was no discussion about voting Sonia Logan for chairperson, even though Beeville City Council had not announced yet if she would be appointed again. At the work session on January 29th that I also attended, Attorney Chris Berry told the board that their first item of business would be to appoint a new chair since Jane Osborne was appointed as the newest board member instead of Sonia. Attorney Berry brought his daughter to the work session and introduced her, saying that she would be able to fill in for him when he wasn't able to attend. And she's here, I can say, so it's good that she's here. At the February board meeting, the executive director stated that since Attorney Berry could not attend the meeting, he had asked that the board not vote on the matter of chairperson until he could be present. She said it would be a violation of the Sunshine Act because it wasn't posted on the agenda, which she again put together. It was decided at the work session that the board puts together the agenda, not the executive director. Voting for chairperson is again not on the agenda. At last month's meeting, according to the Meadville Tribune, it was evident that there was tension between the executive director and board members. From my perspective, it appears that the executive director is interfering with the board's election of its chairperson. I would appreciate Attorney Berry's explanation why this isn't election interference. Jackie Cummins, Holland Towers resident, apartment 307.
I can address that when we get to me, and there might be other people who want to talk. So,
Okay. Anybody else want to address the board? Go ahead.
Gretchen Myers, Meadville, City Council. At the last meeting, we were talking about the bus stop, and I did reach out to Tim Bagel at CATA, and he said, thanks for your email. Yes, we were trying to work with Holland Towers and the CAO on Water Street. This is a priority for us for 2025. So that was really great news. I did reach out to Vanessa, but I didn't hear back. So, and I have these little emails. I just wanted to be sure that that something had happened. I have two other concerns. I am concerned about the two unfilled positions. That I'm really hoping that the board will make those a priority so that falls on top. Okay. And then my last concern is the agenda that went out for this meeting. I spoke with people on the board, and the understanding that they couldn't table the resolution 20 and 21, that they didn't have that power, and you do have that power. That is in fact what you do have the power to table something. It was just stunning to receive it in the way that it happened, and that's my public comment. Thank you.
Gretchen, can I ask you really quickly about the CATA thing? So just so I'm clear, you reached out to CATA after our discussion from the last meeting where Jackie said we would like to think about getting a bus stop set up outside with CATA's help, and then we had a conversation and
I have like 20 emails to go back to, so I was seeing it.
Okay, were you able to reach? The thing is, I think it's just communication, and I know, and that's why I was maybe it's just staffing, it's we're moving ahead. If you could even just because residents have asked me about the bus stop. So if you could just really
I had a signed agreement with them probably 2 or 3 years ago, Gretchen.
Yeah,
to add the bus stop at Morgan.
right. He said, he wasn't sure about Morgan, but, in this email.
Right,
I
but
was-
that's where we were gonna start, so we were kind of waiting on that to occur. So,
Okay.
but we had signed agreement and then they never got back to us, so. But I had seen your emails and I have it there to go back through, but I haven't forgotten about it.
Okay, I was concerned because he was really on it the next day, so I
Mhm.
guess, can we get a plan for the bus stop? It can be a CATA priority, because it's an easy ask, and CATA they've got the funds. They had the funds to do it this year, so it'd be nice if it could be a project that would be
Okay.
done this year.
Thanks for reaching out to them, Gretchen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning it. With the residents, yeah.
Other comments? Yes.
You wanna go ahead. Are you sure? Okay, well, I'll go because it's related to what Gretchen was saying. Autumn Vogel, City of Meadville City Council. I came to a meeting in November and delivered a letter. I'm going to deliver it again because I'm not. Just want to make sure that the board is seeing it, right? So this is a letter that kind of just reaffirms council's commitment to appointing Joe Tompkins to the Housing Authority Board. I summarized it last time, but I just really want to make sure, right, that the Housing Authority is understanding, right, council's desire to see Joe appointed and to explore any options necessary to make that so. So I'm going to read the whole thing. Dear members of the Meadville Housing Authority Board, on behalf of the Meadville City Council, I'm writing to express our strong support for the recent appointment of Mr. Joe Tompkins to the Meadville Housing Authority Board. We believe that Mr. Tompkins' unwavering commitment to the residents of Meadville and his dedication to fostering inclusive, supportive housing initiatives make him an exceptional candidate for this position. Given his qualifications and the positive impact we believe he will bring to the board, we encourage the Housing Authority to take any steps, necessary steps to ensure his seating, such as applying to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for a waiver to address any potential conflict of interest concerns. We are confident that such a waiver will allow Mr. Tompkins to bring his passion, knowledge, and experience to benefit the Housing Authority and the Meadville community as a whole. Council remains firm in its belief that Mr. Tompkins is the best fit to serve on the board, and we urge the Housing Authority to pursue any required actions to facilitate his appointment. And now beyond his appointment, maybe his remaining on the board. His voice and insights will be invaluable in advancing the mission of the Housing Authority and meeting the needs of the residents. It's my understanding that you are considering a few conflict of interest resolutions later in the meeting. I, again, am just reminding you of the will of the City Council of the City of Meadville as expressed in this letter and as expressed by Joe Tompkins' original appointment. We know that Joe is going to be a fierce advocate for folks who live in Meadville and in public housing. That's why we feel confident that in his ability to do the job, and we want to see him seated and remain seated. Additionally, right, Common Roots has emerged as a real partner in expanding affordable housing options for people and expanding dignified housing for folks, which is a priority for our current City Council. We've passed a housing action plan. I would want to see the Housing Authority be as much of a partner in that as Common Roots is being. It doesn't feel like that's happening right now, and that is incredibly disheartening. I hope that we can get to a place where it is happening, right, where we're all working together to expand options for affordable, dignified housing for folks. Hopefully we can get through this, and we're willing to do, whatever might be necessary, might be possible, right, to help facilitate us all kind of getting to a place where we're working in the same direction and towards the same ends. Affordable, dignified, safe housing that respects all residents and gives them a safe place to live. Thanks.
Thanks, Autumn.
Hi, I'm Iris Cole. I live here at Holland Towers. I used to live on the third floor, 315, but because of health reasons and with all the renovation going on, it has caused not only my asthma but my COPD to kick in. I am now up on the 6th floor, which I love, and that's where I want to stay. Vanessa was kind enough to get me that apartment, even though I wanted out of Holland Towers, but I'm okay with it. But I'm still getting the chemical smells that they use with their construction and all the dust. I mean, nothing is closed in, and it comes under my door and through the vents, and I don't know. I'm tired of being able to have to go to the hospital. I'm tired of not being able to breathe. I want to be able to live a happy and healthy life. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Iris. What can we do about this? This is unacceptable.
I'll have to work with the contractors to see what we can do. Like if they put plastic over the doors, if they're doing any sort of cutting or whatever. There's not a lot of that going on right now. So basically it's drywall work, plumbing, electrical.
Okay.
So there isn't any more sawing that is being done.
Iris, so Vanessa's saying she's going to try to work with the contractors to mitigate all that dust. I would ask you personally, just me as an individual board member, can you keep me posted on this? So if you're still having problems a week from now, 2 weeks from now, if nothing's happening and you're still having these health issues because of the work, can you let me know? And I'm happy to touch base with you after the meeting and give you my email and a way to contact me. But I want to make sure we take care of this. Okay.
Hello, I'm Jamie Kinder. I am the mayor of Meadville and also a citizen of this town. What I believe is that there is some confusion as to what the board here does. It is unfortunate that I'm here again. I have been here for 3 years, and I'm saying the exact same thing every single time. This board and this organization has the ability to do many things, right? And what's happening is we are failing on the most basic thing, and that is providing housing, dignified housing, right? Safe housing, comfortable housing for people who live here, right? Affordable housing for people who live here. It's disheartening to know that in the spirit of cooperation, right, in the city of Meadville, that we are unable to even cooperate with our partners here that help with providing dignified, safe housing, right? I am constantly contacted about people not giving back to people, right? For Section 8 vouchers, for, basic needs for organizations that are coming in to help the people who live here. This is their home, right? Our job is to house people. Our job is to provide safe, comfortable housing, right, for people. And some of these people have no other choice, right? So what I'm asking is that we hold staff accountable to have an open line of communication, right? That we do our best to provide that housing, because that's our job as board members, right? Is to hold staff accountable so that people can live in this community, which it is a community, it is their home, right? And they are able to live dignified. They're able to live out their days with joy in this town that we're creating, and it's a beautiful place. But if we don't have a willingness to work together with at least the community and the people providing that, we are going to fail, just like we're doing. And unfortunately, when we're not holding our staff accountable, it is your failure. You are failing. So I'm hoping that after today, that we start looking at a way to work as a community, to work with our partners, and to staff up, right? Like maybe it's staff. I just hope that is top of mind and we use it, right, to do better for the people who live here. Because they're asking, they're begging. I've heard it for 3 years. They're begging for help. So I'm asking you to please
put it as a priority. Help these people live a life of dignity, right, in their own community. And it is your job. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Anyone else?
Can I speak again?
Sure.
Okay, I had physical therapy and a cold, and I don't remember the dates and everything, but there was one day on a Wednesday, I think, that Cal came up and asked if my toilet was leaking, and I said no. And he came up later in the day, and he says the pipe between my toilet and the downstairs toilet was leaking. So they moved me to 306. And I hate it because it's on the Water Street. But he came later in the afternoon. He said, movers are coming tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. These movers that came did a lousy job. My refrigerator is the worst thing. They put the milk on the bottom and cabbage and lettuce on the top. Opposite. I don't know where anything is, and I have been feeling good, and I really want to go back to my apartment when it's done, 317. I hope I do get it back. But they did a lousy job. And I can't find it. What I'm doing now is I'm going through everything and I'm throwing away what I don't need. Because I figure I've got almost a year to do it. Because I'm not going to go through this again. But they did a lousy job and I didn't have enough any time. I just get a little dishpan at a time and figure out what I need. And I've got 3 shoe boxes on the floor of stuff that I need, but I'm going to designate it in a better filing system than where I would know everything is. But they did a lousy job. And I didn't get any groceries because I couldn't find anything in my cupboard. So when I went grocery shopping, I got stuff that I needed, canned stuff and stuff like that, plus refrigerator stuff. And I put it in a box on the floor so that at least I know where it is.
So Kathy, just so we're clear, what are you asking right now? I got the point that
Well,
the
I
movers
want
in
to
the
tell
back
you
end.
that if this is the way these movers are doing it, they're doing a lousy job.
And did you said you wanted to move back to your old apartment if
I
possible?
want, and Vanessa,
When the renovation's done, she can.
yeah, I definitely, because when
It is an emergency.
when I have everything, I want some stuff that I can move in my wagon. Will I have a couple days to bring stuff to my apartment?
Yeah, she'll have days to move her stuff.
Because I can move stuff myself exactly where I had it before.
Yeah.
But
So
I
you're
just want to
asking
tell you
for
that
the movers to
these
kind of
movers
keep.
did a lousy job.
You're asking the movers to keep the same arrangements as you have them when they make the move. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Well, I
same
trust Vanessa
arrangement
will
that I had
relay that to
before.
them.
All righty, moving on.
Thanks,
Anybody
Kevin.
else? Resident council reports.
Okay, I'll do the 2 families and then Jackie can do the Holland Towers. Meadville Housing Resident Council would like to thank Vanessa for the remodeling done at the old VFW. It provides a much nicer venue for meetings, classes, summer lunch, and for tennis to reserve for parties. William Gill would like to thank Vanessa for meeting with them concerning the new stoves that are being installed in residents' apartments. In addition, council is assisting Vanessa and are passing out totes to tenants to clear the way for the installation process. Jackie?
I didn't bring my report with me, but I sent it to all all of you so that you would have it. And it was summarized as the Holland Towers Resident Council as a group decided to have coffee break on the second Friday of the month instead of weekly. Bingo will continue to be weekly, and the same residents as last year have agreed to do it for another year as our bingo license needs to be renewed in April. This is how it was shortened, but that wasn't everything that I put in it. Holland Towers Resident Council talked a lot about the bug issue and housekeeping issues, and all that is in there. This report, she says, is only to include activities, not the rest of the things that we discussed. Do you have any questions for me about anything that was put in the letter?
I was going to say, in your whole letter, the answer is, as far as housekeeping, I think we are doing them. Maybe we need to do them more, certainly.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your comments. And
Yeah. We as a group think that we should be done once a year. Everyone, not just pick and choose who you want, but everyone. We used to do that. We used to have a housekeeping inspection once a year. We were told what it was going to be. We had we knew ahead of time what day they were coming, and we were given a report of whether it passed or failed. And if it failed, it gave you a date and specifically what you had to do. Now, like with the housekeeping report and the exterminators report, we don't get a written copy, and we should be.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And again, I know as a part of the REAC inspections we underwent, they did, a lot of the units in the families were individually inspected, and I'm assuming that once they get that done, Holland Towers will be, but you're also under construction, so I know that makes it difficult on both sides. So,
Yeah,
but
we
again,
really need to start like the rebuilding.
well, and we will encourage that when they can, they get to that and give you some notice, right?
So just so I'm clear, what's the current policy for the housekeeping inspections?
There's not a designated policy.
There is no policy.
No,
So,
we could do housekeeping inspections as often as we choose.
so
So we can do clusters, we can choose to do so many each month. You know, it's just right now getting it scheduled. We're still trying to get things finished with the REACT inspections, the city inspections, so, and we're gonna have that all cleaned up by the end of the month. So there will most likely be some housekeeping inspections scheduled here within the next few weeks.
okay.
We're just looking at the schedule and trying to get that coordinated.
So Jackie is saying that there used to be regular annual housekeeping inspections. You'd be given the notice well in advance, and you'd get written reports. Can we implement that?
I'm not sure what Bill did before I was here. I mean, I know there were inspections done after I came, but if she's talking about when the previous director was here, I'm not sure exactly what he did or how he handled it.
I actually have a question about the paperwork part. Because when I was a resident of housing, we did have an inspection every year. We were given a checklist. Once the people came to inspect the apartment after we had gotten all the cleaning done, we were given a pass-fail that day.
Okay.
I had one housekeeping inspection during the end of my tenancy, and I was never given a pass-fail. I was never told anything. There was no paperwork. And I've talked to residents since then who said that they've been inspected, and then they've not gotten like an itemized, like, these are the things that you need to fix, these are the things that, like, that was my first question is, it doesn't seem like tenants are getting that. And my second question is, when people are getting like for the REAC inspection, then Mr. Farron, you can chime in because you know the law on this one. You have to give someone, 24 hours notice before you enter their house, and it says 48, like HUD says 48, the state says 24. Those notices used to say, I'm coming to your house on this day at this time, which I think is a courtesy that the residents deserve because you're coming into their home. But I noticed that the REAC inspections say, we're going to come into these apartments during this space of time, whether you're home or not. And apparently the little notice they used to leave on the door, like, hey, we were in your house today and this is what we did, that's not being left either.
We ran out of them, so we had to get additional ones.
Okay.
And like I said, I cannot acknowledge what was done before because I wasn't here then.
I'm speaking to some of the things that I've been told about.
Right,
now, though.
but you're talking about things that happened in the past. I'm not aware of what was happened in the past, so I have, we're working with it a little bit differently. We had multiple inspections back to back, so we were trying to get in and get the units fixed. And that's why we did what we did. And right now, we're down to, I think we have 3 or 4 we need to get done. The maintenance staff has gone to the doors, knocked. If the tenant lets them in, they'll go in, they'll get the work done. If they don't, they're getting a notice. We've got a couple that we're putting notices out so we can get in and get the work done. So by the end of the month, we will have all the inspection workers cleaned up, from the REACT inspection, the city inspection, everything, before we start another batch of inspections. So it was just different procedures before. A lot of our stuff now is done on a tablet. So we don't have really anything to hand to the tenant like before, because the maintenance staff uses a tablet. It's all electronic. They don't carry paper with them. And the tags are the only things that we have. So the tags, we were out for a period of time. They have the tags. I know they're putting them on the doors because I see them carrying them around. So, we're working through a lot of different things. We've had a lot of inspections over the last couple years. So, and we had a lot of work to do in the units because tenants weren't reporting stuff. So that's the reason it's taken so long, because there were a lot of things in the units. Like they had, broken light fixtures, broken receptacles, broken tiles, faucets, all types of things that we've picked up on this inspection that hadn't been called in. And that's what's taking so long because of that, is because years and years of tenants not calling stuff in. So now I feel we're on top of it. But as far as them leaving a pass or fail, it's only going to be on a tag because everything else is done electronically.
Just a quick question. For both the REAC and the city inspections, because I heard what Sina said about timing. We can't control the timing on that, correct?
The city inspections, but the REAC can't.
They come and they do them as fast as they can do them. We have no real say on, we know what day they're coming, but they just churn them out, so I don't think we could give you a time.
Okay, but then for the housekeeping inspections, are people being given a day and a time?
Yes.
Or are they just being given a window?
No, they're be given a day and a time.
Okay.
So I would say, in the ones that I've litigated, they've provided a letter in the cases I've been involved in, which are usually a week or 2 out, to give the people an opportunity to prepare for the inspection, at least the ones I've been involved in.
So Jackie, did you hear that part? So Vanessa and Chris are saying that you are given a day and a time when you get a housekeeping inspection. Does that hold true?
I haven't been given a day and a time when I was inspected in the last 4 years since Vanessa's been here.
With the REACT inspections, no, they weren't, because we were going through and we were hitting sections of the building. So we didn't know, because when we do those pre-REACT inspections, when we get into the apartment, we actually do as much of the work as we can while we're in there. So some days you can get in and you could maybe do 6 inspections in a day. Another day you might be able to do 1 or 2. So to kind of keep the flow going, that's why we did it that way. We basically set a time frame between this hour and this hour, between this days. They could pretty much tell. If we were on a floor and in a hallway, if we were at this apartment, they knew we were coming in that row. So, but that's the only way we can do that, because we just don't know how long it's going to take for everything. So, and we did a lot of extra repairs that first year I was here, specifically here.
Yes, and I do recall that, and we were given 3-month period of time. We were not given a week, a day. We were saying the next 3 months we're going to come to you.
And this is for the REAC inspections.
Right. That's basically what it was.
The pre-inspections or the actual REACT inspections? Because I know there was also pre-inspections for
it was the pre-REACT inspections we were trying to get in the units. And if we didn't get them all done, we wanted to make sure we gave ourselves enough window to be able to get in, get the work done, because there was a lot of things that we couldn't take care of while we were there. So we would have to go back. So that way we didn't have to keep notifying them.
So we don't have control over the REAC inspections, but we did have control over the pre-REAC inspections, which could have been dated and timed for residents.
No, I'm saying that no, because I said that if we got into units and we could make the repairs, if the repairs were minor, we could maybe do 6 one day, but the next day we could only do 2. So if we only notify this many and we get 2 done, if we notified each person individually, then that meant we couldn't get any more done if we had a good day. So that's why we did it as a blanket.
And Mr. Ferry, is that legal to do that? To not give people that definite 24-hour, 48-hour window?
You're talking on the REAC stuff, I'd have to look at it.
The pre-inspections, the ones housing did before REAC.
I think that anything that we're involved with that's not based upon regulations is bound by what our lease terms are. So we're obligated, so like the housing inspections or the housekeeping inspections we were talking about, we had language in our leases with respect to how we can do those, when we can do those, and we have to follow that for each individual case. So it depends upon the particular lease that we're working with. I don't remember where, we have a new lease now.
Yeah, it's a minimum of 48 hours. That's the minimum. It doesn't
That's
say
what
maximum. It does not spell out that you have to give a date and time. It says, and that is a HUD regulation, a minimum of 48 hours unless it's an emergency. So there's nothing there, there's nothing in the regulations that state that you have to give somebody the exact date and time. As long as you give them a minimum of 48 hours notice, then you've done that. So if you basically send them out and say during this week, between these hours and these hours, we've met that requirement that we've given them the 48 hours notice during that time frame.
But it wasn't a week's notice, it was 3 months.
Now, you can always, in further answering your question, Zena, the board can ultimately determine to do something greater than what the regulation allows for. The regulation's the minimum. I mean, there can always be more. You guys can set whatever your own policies might be. But you're obligated to follow the minimum of that regulation, and then you'd be obligated to follow whatever you put in your leases if you do decide to give more time. So that's what we would be bound to do.
All right, well, because I mean, in my opinion, I feel like respecting the residents is giving them a date and a time. Because when we did have annual housekeeping inspections, because we did before, we were given a date and a time. So you knew, like, if you wanted to be home while strangers were in your house, you could be home. And that's a part of having people have that feeling of safety that this is my home. You know, I think that's a very important thing.
And we we do that, Sina. But when we have to do a bulk, that's why we did the window. The same thing is when we did the city inspections, because we knew there were certain things that we had to do, and I gave a blanket with the city inspections just in case something occurred one day that the inspector couldn't be there. Like, I think he started like January 6th, and we were scheduled to the end of January. So we did that window for the city inspections just in case, because it was a snowy time of year, just in case the inspector got sick and couldn't get there. So we did a window when we did the city inspections the same way.
Right, no, I understand that part.
We have a special population here at Holland Towers that are special needs. Those with disabilities and those who are elderly. We need a written notification. I'm so happy that you're doing it electronically, but you have to find a way to let us know how we did. If you're not telling us that we failed, we're not going to know it. So we need that written report for extermination and for housekeeping.
Yes, I know Vanessa's right about the 48-hour period because it is in HUD's regulations. That I know. I've read all of it. But the last time that when you have them check the smoke detectors in our apartments, mine wasn't working, and Kyle was there and said, "We'll take care of it." Well, it still ain't working, and that was a year ago.
That sounds like a fire code violation.
So your smoke detector has been working for a year?
Huh?
Your smoke detector has not been working for a year. Needless to say, Vanessa, can we get in there?
I'm not aware of it, so now that I'm, what was your old apartment number?
This was in 602, what I'm in now. I used to be in 315 and
We haven't had a fire inspection since we've moved you.
Yes, because they came in and checked, Tyler was with them. And they checked the smoke detector and it did not work. Also,
But we haven't had, I haven't scheduled a fire inspection because I just signed the contract. So I don't know what, I'll go back and I'll ask Kyle and find out what's going on.
And Iris, again, keep us posted. So Vanessa's going to get Kyle in there to get that smoke detector fixed. If it doesn't get fixed, please let us know.
yeah, because we used to have inspections twice a year when Bill was here.
Our contract reads once a year, and I just signed the contract, and we typically do it in the fall.
So I have one question. I don't know, Chris, if this is the time. You had said earlier, right, the board can determine to do something greater. And so what I guess I would propose, I don't know if this is the place to make a motion or a new business.
No. It's not a place to make a motion, but what we, and
here's what I would move to do, whether it's a motion or not. I would like to have a policy for the annual housekeeping inspections. And I would like that policy to include written notice to the residents about what they need to do and what the report is, right? That seems like it used to be the practice. We don't have anything written down right now. So for the April meeting, I would like to have a policy that either you or Vanessa draft that we can discuss and vote on regarding an annual housekeeping inspection policy.
That's part of their lease, Joe. Housekeeping inspections are part of their lease.
Okay. So you said earlier there is no policy.
No, but it's part of their lease that we can go in and do housekeeping and other inspections.
Okay.
You don't need a policy to do that.
Well,
We are required to annually inspect their units. Housekeeping can be done as many times a year as we want with notice.
So I guess
having a policy and guiding us by a policy is, you're just adding something additional.
But the policy that you said we have the annual inspections, though, that's just maintenance inspection, right? That's a requirement that once a year housing does a maintenance inspection.
Right, which HUD requires us to do.
Well, I think that Joe and I are suggesting that we have a policy where there's also an annual housekeeping inspection, just so we can catch.
But we're basically doing that with the exterminator. The exterminator goes in these units, at least this building, once every quarter. So, and he's going in the other properties. So if he sees something while he's out there, he makes the manager aware, and then we schedule housekeeping inspections.
Well, I just know that when I lived there, when they did housekeeping inspections, that's how they caught maintenance issues. So you wouldn't have had to run around doing pre-REAC inspections because the housekeeping inspections.
But the
would have caught
housekeeping
those issues.
inspection is not the inspection. A housekeeping is walking around. It's not testing the receptacles. It's not testing the windows. It's not testing the faucets. It's not checking all the doors. Housekeeping is walking around and seeing if the conditions are safe and sanitary. So it's two different types of inspections.
But during the REAC inspection, do they address housekeeping issues?
Yes, we did.
So housekeeping issues could have been caught before then if we did them annually. That would have
You
avoided.
can do them annually. You can do, I'll tell you what, there's a couple that we've done, you could do them every month, and they're not going to change.
So again, I think what we'd like to see is we'd like to see a policy or something written down where we are committing, right, to do annual housekeeping inspections and to provide written reports to the residents and also provide them with a date and a time when those inspections are
We'll
going
provide them with a date and a time, and we will get things in scheduled. I'm requesting not to add another policy. If we add that policy, it is going to have to be incorporated into their lease, which means we would have to amend the lease. So if they fail things, then that would have to be amended as well.
Okay.
I will assure you, we will do more housekeeping inspections. We are doing them, and we will notify them of the date and time.
So Chris, I don't know, this is what I asked, if I need to have a motion on this to make sure it happens.
This dovetails into something I was going to address when I talk, so give me a chance to do that at that point, and then we can sort out how we want to handle that.
Because I think the crux of the issue is that we're saying maybe we need to have a policy that spells out how that process happens, so,
Exactly.
because of resident concern.
No, I understand that. I'm gonna lay out how you do that.
And I'm gonna drop it now, I just was clarifying.
Okay, anybody else?
I have one more, just not on this issue, but about the resident council reports, and this is a question for Vanessa. So you provided us with these summaries, and as Jackie mentioned, I mean, Jackie gave the board a 2-page report, and you gave a summary of that. But our summary, provided in our packet, includes 2 sentences of a 2-page report, and it only mentions the part about that they had bingo. Right, so it doesn't mention anything about the housekeeping inspection. So I guess my question is, I'm wondering about the other 2 resident council reports. Is this an abbreviated version of those? And,
No.
Okay, and so the other question would be, since these are supposed to be reports to the board, can we see those reports?
She emailed them to you.
No, Jackie did, but we didn't get any emails from the other resident council presidents.
They didn't have anything else. That's what they had. And
Can
that's
we
what
see that correspondence? I mean, again, it's a report to the board as opposed to a report
I
to
gave you exactly what they gave me.
Okay, great. Can we see the emails?
They worked with Barb to write them up, and she emailed them to me.
Okay, if we can see those emails, that'd be great. I guess what my point is, these are reports to the board, so it'd be great to get the reports directly. Especially because the Holland Towers report is so abbreviated.
But I gave that because that is what, my understanding is what they report as far as the resident council. A lot of what she had was things that she typically brings up in public comment. I felt that since she emailed it directly to the board, you already had the copy. And she did discuss it at public comment.
But my concern is that you took it upon yourself to take some of Jackie's report out of our summary. And so I think it would clear things up if we just heard directly from the resident councils from here on out when we get their reports.
I can ask them.
And
But they're not the ones that sent them. They worked with Barb, and Barb emailed me their reports.
Okay, Chris?
Okay, with respect to official action items, I won't make comments now. I'll deal with that when and if any of that stuff comes up at that time. That way the discussion won't be disjointed. First thing I wanted to address with respect to Joe, there's only 2 ways that he would not be a board member. I see this keeps coming up. He's a board member. Only way he's not a board member is if he decides he doesn't want to be a board member anymore, or if city council decides that they don't want him to be a board member anymore. That's it. That's the only 2 ways that happens. Obviously, this board has the ability to say what they like or don't like about certain things, but they don't have the ability to remove anybody. So, if that is floating out there somewhere, that shouldn't be floating out there somewhere. He's a board member, been a board member, that's that. With respect to the second item, I want to talk about agendas just a little bit. So we have a heightened scrutiny because our meetings are more entertaining than they used to be in the past. So we want to make sure that we don't have any open meeting violations. And with respect to agendas, you can deliberate upon, as long as you do it in an open meeting, on anything you want in these meetings, okay? It's the official action part that is the key, all right? So if we're going to have official action, now we're not an entity that has pre-meetings to our meetings, like say a school board would, where they can talk in a work session with respect to what they're going to do at their next regular meeting and have all the resolutions set out. When Vanessa puts together resolutions, those are just suggested resolutions. They're not things that you guys have worked on in the past. You guys determine what resolutions you're ultimately going to pass. Those are just suggestions. She's your agent. That's what her job is to make suggestions to you. What we need to do with our agendas, which we do, is to identify the topics that could be the source of some sort of official action. You may or you may not take official action. You may or you may not adjust what the suggested resolutions are. But we have to make sure that we identify things on the agenda so that folks know what we're going to be doing. We don't know exactly what we're going to do. If we did, we would be having meetings in secret, which is against the law. So we're not doing that. We don't know what we're going to do. We just know what we're going to talk about and what we might act on. So that's the key to the agenda issues. And if we want to make things clearer on our agenda, we certainly could put language that says agency business that might be acted on, or might create official action. We could put a little asterisk or something if that's going to help out in the future. Because the one thing that I want to avoid, I've mentioned to others, this is a very open board. You guys talk about more in public than virtually any board that I deal with. And that's the purpose of the open meetings. And I know that there's no intention here of violating any of that. But I don't think you're in a position where you're in any danger of violating anything, but part of the problem when people raise those issues, having to defend against that is the bigger problem than actually losing in an open meetings case. So we always want to err on the side of giving way more so that there can't be any question with respect to how transparent we're being with respect to the issues that we deal with at these meetings. So I'm going to keep trying to work towards more of that. I know I'm always reining you guys in with respect to certain things, but that's really the purpose behind that, which kind of dovetails into what Jackie was getting at. I think last month's meeting was the first one I've missed. I had a court hearing that I couldn't reschedule. I know Jackie is hopeful to see my daughter cover these meetings. I support that wholeheartedly. My daughter also works for the district attorney, so she has other duties, isn't always available to be able to cover meetings here, which was the situation in the last month. And as far as approving a slate of officers, or if you're going to create a new chairperson, and then and if you take one of your, let's say you took Dick and you made him the chairperson, then you need a new vice chairperson, that type of thing. The thing that I wanted to avoid was any type of an open meeting violation with respect to that. I think you certainly can deliberate all those things. We need to make sure that, if you were going to, since I wasn't going to be there, I knew that the chances for something bad to happen were higher. And I think that certainly today, during your new business, you could talk about some of those issues, find out who might be interested in certain positions, and then you can put that on the agenda as an action item in the next for the next meeting, and that way everybody knows what's going on, and that's what we were trying to avoid. So we didn't want Jackie not to know what was going on here. So I wanted to give an abbreviated version of that because I imagine we got lots to talk about. Those are the things I want to talk about up front, and then I'll address issues as they come up when we work our way down the list here. Any questions for me on the stuff that I was talking about?
So just so I'm clear, anything that we would like to see placed on the agenda at a future meeting, we raise that under new business, and we can deliberate it on all we want, but if we want it placed on the agenda for a future meeting, that's when we bring it up.
That's one way to do it. And that's a good way to do it because you're doing it right in front of the folks that are here, and they can see and hear you deliberate about the topic, and then ultimately vote on it. And that gives the public the ability, if they want to write you letters about what they think you ought to do or something like that, that gives them an opportunity to speak. Or if they want to talk at the next meetings, the public comment period before you actually vote on the action item, it gives them an opportunity.
So just to go back to the previous discussion, Sina and I are both saying we'd like to see some sort of policy where we're going to have annual housekeeping that's going to produce written reports for tenants, and we're going to give them specific days.
So that certainly, let me take one step back for you on this. With respect to the policy, I can get you a draft of the lease. That way you can see what's in the, because I think that will be helpful for the board members. Obviously, you can create that as a potential action item on your next agenda. Doesn't mean you have to pass a resolution. Just means that you're going to talk about that, and then if that leads to somebody making a motion, that's great. I think that and this is a perfect example. you don't have any material to work with today, so you don't have a real ability to, even if you wanted to make a motion, and it would be proper under the open meetings law, you don't have any material to make the motion off of because you don't know what the leases say, and there hasn't been any comment with respect to the law other than what you've heard here. So this gives you an opportunity to be able to look at stuff before you get to the next meeting, and then you have that. And if the board wants wants a policy, then it'll be a policy, whatever that happens to be. And it may be. Maybe other housing authorities have, policies. There might be samples. I don't know that, but I know that from what I work with on those come up in some of the eviction cases that I'm involved in. So, obviously we work off of the language that's in the lease.
Yeah, thanks. So my concern is, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that so we'll talk about, say, annual housekeeping inspections next time, and then we'll have a draft for something to consider and vote on in 2 months, rather than, I think what we're asking right now is we would like to see something we could potentially vote on in the April meeting that would make sure that residents get a written report when they get their housekeeping inspections, and it would detail further aspects of the process. And we could deliberate on that as a board in the April meeting and then vote on implementing.
I think the answer to that is you would need to engage with me to gather that information between today and that April meeting so you know what you want to propose to vote on.
Could we have a work session to do that? Isn't that
Do we
what
need a
work
work
sessions are
session?
for?
I don't think you need a work session. You just need to be able to talk to either somebody like Vanessa or talk to somebody like me to gather that information for you individually. And then obviously we can disseminate all of the information to all of the board members. It's just that you can't deliberate amongst yourselves about it. But you can do that with me. So, you could have the material prior to the next meeting. When you have the material, then you can draft your own motion that you want to make, and you make it. That's simple. So you can do what you're talking about by the next meeting.
Well, we keep saying policy, and I'm hearing that policy may be the issue. Maybe we don't make it as a policy, but we make it a procedure or a way that we perform the duties of the inspection, which are already in the lease.
I guess I don't care if we call it a policy or procedure or applesauce, just so long as we have these inspections done in the way that Jackie just requested, which is, again, annual inspections on a regular basis so that tenants know the day and the time it's going to happen and they get a written report.
Right.
However we codify that, great.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm thinking that there's a way to do that. But if we make it a policy and have to change the lease, that's another thing. But if we have a procedure in place to do those, that may be calling it that. So I'm just saying, let's look at it as a way to do that.
And a policy would have to be put out for tenant comment because it directly affects them.
That's true.
So you would not be.
That wouldn't be a bad thing necessarily.
Well, you would not be able to approve it as quickly as you would like. So you would have to.
You'd put out for comment after the April
Right.
meeting.
So
I think resident comment would be wonderful.
Might be a good thing,
on
yeah.
something like that.
So perhaps for the next meeting, we could have both a draft policy and a draft procedure that would outline the aspects of an annual housekeeping inspection.
Yeah, that's possible, yeah.
I mean, is it possible, or can we do it?
I think it depends upon how difficult it is to come up with that information. I don't know that off the top of my head. It seems to me it's a doable thing. We'll see what we get when we get into it. We might find out some things we don't know about that, which is usually what happens to me. So,
Well, and then I'm going to let it go. The only reason that I've suggested a work session would be because obviously we can't, more than two of us, meet with you at a time about this.
Right.
So if we met in a work session where the board is allowed to meet and talk, we could all talk, because then we could get everyone's thoughts, opinions, ideas all at the same time.
my only comment with respect to work sessions is that you don't want to set the work session without having the material. You usually set the work session once you know you have the material, because you don't want to get up to because you got to you have to go through some hoops to do that. So you want to make sure you got something to talk about.
Oh, right. No, I wasn't proposing we set one today. Just I'm asking, would it be more reasonable to have a work session? That way
That'd
the
be
whole
up to the
board
five of you.
and the residents are part of that discussion.
So again, I get that this is getting tedious, and I can hear Dick, his heavy breathing. He wants us to move on. I get that. But it's important for me anyway, to be clear on this. So let's say I would like to have a work session held before the April meeting so that we can discuss a policy and or procedure for an annual housekeeping inspection. And I just, like, we as a board reach a consensus that we would be okay with this, and we would like to see those drafts within, say, 2 weeks when we held the work session.
Mhm.
Like, is it simply a question of getting a consensus from the board to then do that?
I think your bylaws, with respect to what you're calling a work session, I call a special meeting, require just two of you to put in writing that you want to have a special meeting over X, Y, Z. In this case, Dick would be the person that would go to as the vice chairman, and then the meeting gets set to the vice chairman. That's the current process under the bylaws as I remember it. So,
Thank you.
Anything else, Chris?
I hope not.
Executive Director's Report, Vanessa.
Okay. I will keep it pretty brief. The fiscal year ends in a couple weeks. March 31st is our fiscal year end, so we are working on finalizing all the data and documents for our fee accountant. The audit is scheduled for July, so there are a lot of different things going on that we're trying to get done. I took a couple staff to a Western Pennsylvania Directors Association meeting last week. Got some very good information. I talked about the one house that we had that tested high in meth and fentanyl and cocaine, and got some good direction from the other directors on how to approach that to mitigate it. Discussed hoarding, bed bugs, housekeeping, got some really good ideas on that. Some housing authorities are working on apps to open communication up between the staff and the tenants, so we got some information on that. We started with the co-op program at Crawford County VOTEC. We started a maintenance person on Monday, March 3rd. He's working out very well. I had a meeting with civil service in setting up the clerical position and what classification that would fall under, so I am working with them on that. Capital fund, I can hit that as we get there. I did talk about the maintenance department working on, all the work orders generated from all the inspections, which there were over 100 work orders generated. Some of them took several visits because there were door replacements. There was patching. Some of the tenants took smoke detectors down. We had overhead lights that we put them up, and then they got broke when we went back to do something else. So we're actually looking at, once we get these cleaned up, starting inspections at one of our other properties. So, but we're going to do them in a smaller scale. We're going to do so many apartments at a time, get those done when those are done, instead of the mass like we did with this. Extermination. Holland Towers has had quarterly inspections conducted, which only increased by a couple. There are approximately a dozen that are inspected on a weekly basis, and I gave you a list. Those are each individual apartments. The narrative on those, I took out the apartment numbers to protect the tenants, but as you can see, there are some that they're just getting inspected on a regular basis because they'll get rid of them and then they'll get them back. We did purchase a new chemical with a new sprayer that our maintenance person has been using, and so far he feels it's worked out really well. He feels that we're making better progress with that. But we still have a lot of issues with tenants with hoarding and a lot of extra stuff around their units and not preparing for the spray. Section 8, February and March HAP payments were paid on the first business day of the month. Both months we had approximately 20 tenants that required an annual reexamination. Plus, there was a property that was sold that housed 18 families, so all of those had to have a special recertification and all new paperwork done. I have been working on synchronizing the inspections with their annual recertification, so there are some tenants who maybe were inspected last year, maybe is getting inspected here in the next couple months. That's so I can get a good schedule with it, so I know who's been inspected and who has not. As I stated before, we have we did send an email out to all the social service agencies. They were questioning whether our waiting list was open. We did send them an email stating the waiting list is still open, yet we're temporarily not issuing vouchers until the funding is finalized. And as most of you know, funding has been going up and down and shut off and shut on. So we've been getting emails from Fetterman's office, just checking on all the housing authorities to making sure we have funding. Public housing, we should be okay, but if we are not funded on a monthly basis for Section 8, we will not be able to meet those Section 8 payments. We do not have Section 8 reserves to cover that. Applications, I'll go into that a little bit more detail, but applications have been submitted online, opening the waiting list in January. I had training on DocuSign so that way we can send documents to applicants instead of doing everything through the mail. And I have training scheduled Thursday in setting up form letters in the software to speed up that process as well. And that is my report. Some other things as we go down the agenda, I can highlight those.
Questions?
Those are applications just to public housing. That's what. Under applications, what are we talking about? 14 applications?
I'll hit it on the staff report. That's why I said I'll go more detail on the staff report.
Okay.
And capital fund grant program, Holland Towers apartment renovation.
Okay. So they started drywalling, started some painting, started some flooring, and after a lot of that was done, they found out there was a defect in the fittings on the water line risers. So they've had to open the walls back up. It is a manufacturer defect, so the manufacturer was actually on site last Tuesday reviewing what had happened. The extra costs for opening up the walls, replacing all the fittings, and refinishing that will be the cost to the manufacturer because it was their problem that it occurred. It was kind of surprising. The contractor told me they pressure test the water lines, everything was fine, and a couple weeks later, then the fittings started to crack. So they're working on going back and replacing all those. That's Holland Towers. As far as the electrical upgrades, we started work out at William Gill Commons. We're about 50% complete. It has gone really well. A lot of times when you get into, we are actually replacing the panel box. So it's an all new panel box, all new breakers. Then they're running a line for the electric range. We've developed a really good system that they do a couple apartments a day. The maintenance staff takes 2 electric stoves to the apartments. They station them in the apartments. They remove the gas stove, recycle it, clean the area so when the new stove goes in, so by the end of the day, the tenants have their heat back on and have their new stove working. And a lot of the tenants have been very pleased with the new stoves. One feature that I was not aware that they had, they actually, because they're electric stoves, they actually have a child lock, that there is a button that you can push on the stove that a child can't turn the knobs and make anything work. So it actually locks all that down. So it was a feature that I wasn't aware that we had, but I think it's a pretty nice feature. So far so good. The tenants like the ranges. The only hiccup we have, some of the apartments, there is some of the apartments, there is a cabinet drawer close to the range, and we can't get the range back tight enough against the wall because of water lines, et cetera, et cetera. So they lose that that one drawer, so we'll just put a false plate on it. So we're working with them on that. It's a really small drawer anyway, so and it's already in some cases been cut back, so it really can't be shaved back anymore. But really, that's the only problem. We had one panel that had a mouse nest in it, and it actually, the mice had chewed the wires going into the panel box. So they added a new junction box, replaced the wires, and everything was good. But up to this point, that was really the only hiccup that we've had so far. So, and that's all I have for capital fund.
Questions? Elm and Morgan and scattered sites in Gill Village.
Okay. So all our vacant units are offline due to renovations at all our properties. This is allowing for storing of stoves, contractor supplies. Some of the apartments are used for staging. So there won't be any new leases until we're done with the renovations. But as soon as we get so many done, we can actually get those, we can put them back online. It's pretty easy to put them back online. But right now they're all off because the contractors are working in all of them. There were 8 annual recertifications, no interims, no eviction notices, no notices to vacate. And during the month of February, there were not any housekeeping inspections done at either Elm or Gill. At Gill, there were 8 recertifications, no interims. And you can see what the tenant's accounts receivable is for each of the properties. And the waiting list for those is pretty much the same that it has been. Also, I know Chris is working on trying to get us the rent that's been paid to the courts by the end of the fiscal year. So that is a process in itself to get that. Holland Towers, we have the 15 units that are offline. We've got 3 of them ready right now that just became vacant that we prepared to move 3 more tenants to empty a stack, and it happens to be the stack that Kathleen was in. We've had the plumbing in that stack has been horrendous. We actually had a job meeting, and if you walked out in the office area, you would have got a shower because it was coming down pretty good. So maintenance staff looking at it, they were able to get it somewhat corrected, but even with the plumber, they looked at it and said, we really need to get the tenants moved out of that stack as much as we can. So it's a pretty full stack. Actually, it was a full stack, and Kathleen was one of those tenants. So we have the rest of the tenants there that we need to relocate, but right now I have 3 apartments, and the maintenance staff has worked with me to isolate what 3 apartments would be the best ones to move right now. So I'll be working with Shar, and we'll be contacting them and scheduling a move for them. I guess I kind of kept going. You want me to just keep going, Dick?
Anybody got any questions so far on any of the things related to our properties?
I don't have a question. I just a comment about the offline units. I mean, I think you know my feelings on this, Vanessa. So I'm encouraged when you say like we might be able to get those offline units back on.
Yeah,
sooner
when work gets done, we take them offline for a period of time, but as soon as everything gets done, we can get them ready and put them back online. I mean, it's very easy.
Yeah.
It's just a case of going into the system.
Right.
But we basically take them offline for a period of time to give us a cushion. We didn't know, going into this, that they were going to be able to do 2 apartments a day, 1 apartment a day, 6 apartments a day. So we needed to have that cushion so when things are done and they move on, then we can go back and put those units back on.
So again, my only comment is simply like I appreciate that you're working to get those units back online as quickly as possible. Because right now it's 19, units offline between Elm, Morgan, and Gill. So that's quite a few. That's quite a few vacant units.
Right, but it's been beneficial because we've utilized those vacant units. So I guess I'll go on to the big question.
Waiting list. I know we had a question that Joe raised last time about 2-bedroom applications. We are getting them, correct?
Yeah, that's kind of
Okay.
further down my report, Marcia.
All right, just want to make sure.
Yeah. Okay, as far as maintenance goes, during the month of February, we had 302 work orders generated, 53 are outstanding. I will tell you by the end of March, there should be pretty much most of those will be done because the maintenance staff has really, these are some left over from, the inspections and everything else that we've done. As far as annual inspections, we haven't done any. We will get ready to do those once we clean up this batch and get out and do some more. Extermination, we've pretty much stayed the same in Holland Towers with 13. Gill, we went up 1. But we're working diligently on those because the contractors do not want to go into units that are infested, so we make sure they're treated really well so they can get in and get the work done while they're out there. You want me to keep going, Dick?
If I could real quick on the extermination report, maybe this is related, maybe it goes under new business. Just curious about the status of the pest control plan.
As soon as the MOU is done, we will get to that.
Any timeline on that? Because I think at our last meeting you said it's basically ready to go.
It is, but John and I get to talking, and there's different things we keep tweaking. So there have been things that come up with evictions that we've been tweaking it. So once we get the MOU done here, then we can divulge into that and really look at it and get things ready to go. But like I said, with our evictions, there have been a lot of things that have been brought up by Northwest Legal Services, so we want to make sure we tighten it, so that is the reason that we haven't really jumped into it, because once we put it out for public comment, also it will become part of the lease, because there will be issues with it, so if the tenant doesn't follow it, then it would give us the grounds for eviction. So, okay. Section 8. 189 units under contract. We have 6 poured outs, and that's between regular vouchers and VASH vouchers. We have 24 VASH vouchers and 1 home ownership, and our waiting list is 461. It's just pretty much staying right now. I do want to make a note that as far as phone calls from people asking as far as their waiting list information, we do have a staff person that's taking messages, recording everything on an Excel spreadsheet. I sorted that to basically put all the people on the waiting list questions all together, and I have a staff person that has been going through and calling them back and giving them. We cannot give them the number that they are because HUD regulations require housing based on their income. So we tell them they're like in the first 100, the second 100, the third 100, the 400. So they are getting calls back, with that. I did get a couple emails, which I will respond to those. So, we are reaching out and making those contacts. Didn't have any new contracts for February. I had 2 interim recertifications and 15 annual recertifications. We still have not been told what our funding is for the year. I'm basing this on the 2-year tool that was provided for 2024. So they basically do a percentage estimate, and that's what I'm using. We typically don't get the final numbers till May or June. Inspections, we did 7 inspections, 2 of them failed, and those failed inspections, we did send letters out to the tenants, and we also sent certified letters to the landlords to make them aware it needs to pass on this day. If it doesn't pass on this day, their contract will not renew. So that we sent it certified to make sure the landlord gets it, because we had a question of one landlord that had not been paid for a tenant for over a year, didn't realize it, and when I went back and researched, the contract was canceled because the unit didn't pass inspection. So I sent the tenants letters, regular mail, but I sent the landlord certified so we can keep track of it so they are aware. Applications. So-
If it's okay, I have a couple questions about Section 8. Glad to hear that you have a staff person working on that, because again, we've received a number of emails, as we all know, about people not being in communication. I think this goes back to Jamie's point earlier. So I'm glad to hear that. One of those was a communication regarding a resident, a long-term voucher holder. We got a letter from Center for Family Services on behalf of this resident who was looking to become a homeowner through the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program. And it's my understanding we do have a home ownership program. It's small. It's only maybe 2 people is what the HUD website says.
It's one.
It's 1 now. But this person has basically done everything they needed to do. They fulfilled all the requirements according to this letter from Center for Family Services. All they're waiting for is for somebody from housing to get back in touch with him. And this has been going on for a few months now. So I'm just wondering about that in particular, because I think we're all in favor.
I do not know how to do that program. I have no idea where to start with it. And anybody that has come and said they wanted to do it right now, I do not have anybody on staff that has any idea how to administer the program. Marcia has helped me find some information, but there's a lot more involved, with that, than the typical Section 8 program. So that is something that I would actually have to go to training to learn how to do. So we are not at this point offering the home ownership because we don't have anybody that knows how to administer it.
Thank you.
Okay?
Well, and I know, just to follow up, because I know Diane, I reached out to her when she got to me and gave her some of the requirements for that program. Again, it's more than just being eligible for Section 8. There's a whole lot of hoops that the client has to jump through, including having so much money in the bank for repairs and all these things. And again, as I pointed out, I didn't think we were in a position to probably do that, but I was wanting to make sure they understood, and she wasn't sure that the client knew all of the additional requirements.
And again, I think this goes back to Gretchen's point earlier. This is where our staffing shortage, particularly on the Section 8 program, is really could be potentially harmful, because I think the homeownership Section 8 program, I think we probably all agree it's really important if people can become homeowners using this program. And so I hate to see this kind of thing falling through the cracks.
There's not a lot of housing authorities that do the home ownership program.
But we do, and we have in the past. And the only reason we're not doing it now is because we don't have somebody managing that program. You're filling in, but we don't have somebody with the adequate training to do it, correct?
And I agree, Joe, but I also know, having worked in that program, that if we're training someone new to come in, they are not going to come in and do Section 8. They're going to have to get the Section 8 program up and running first before they begin to tackle Section 8 homeownership, because of all the different hoops, requirements, and expectations for that program.
So maybe we can return to this under new business, but I think we really have to address the staffing shortage problem. I think we got to be a bit more proactive in this. So I'm happy to return to that under new business.
Applications?
Okay, so applications, I showed you, I changed the report up so you could see that we are receiving online applications. So I have a special column for that, and I broke it down by bedroom size. So I know that was in question on whether we've been receiving online applications. Yes, we are. This is the bedroom size. Because the one bedroom is closed, you will not see the one bedroom. So, and that is Housing Authority wide, because we do not have the units available.
Thanks for doing that.
Any questions? Resident Initiative Coordinator.
Okay. So Barb's report, they're working on the summer lunch program, getting their clearances. They talked to me briefly. They're getting their training scheduled. I believe it's in May. So talking about getting the bus reserved to take, whoever's going to administer that program to get them to that training. The kids must have Friday the 21st off, so she's scheduling ice skating for them at the Mark. One of the agencies was having a poster contest on how important homes are. And we don't have membership with that, but I told Barb, I said, since she got things started, we'll go ahead because we had a lot of children that was interested. So at some point, we'll be looking for judges for those posters, and then we can let the kids know. You know, I'm not sure how she broke the age groups down. I just kind of let her run with it. They went to the Kilt and Kiln, the Gill Community Center, but this class is for adults only, so it's not kids, it's for the adults. So whenever she gets that scheduled. And that's all I have for the general reports.
Questions? Move to resolutions. We have 3 resolutions, 17, 18, and 19, all to write off vacant tenants' accounts. This we have to do by the end of March to satisfy HUD requirements and the auditor. So these are accounts which we've not been able to satisfy, and so I'm going to entertain a motion to approve all 3 as a unit, 17, 18, and 19.
So move.
I don't know, again, procedurally, if this is the way to do it. I would move to amend resolution.
Hold on one. There hasn't been a second yet, so.
I thought
Marcia seconded.
Oh, okay, I thought you moved for it.
Oh, who moved? I moved. You moved.
I moved.
You moved for a second? Okay, sorry.
She said so moved, and I think that was the confused.
All right, that's all right.
It's okay.
So yeah, I make a motion to amend resolution 17 by striking item 8.
So you got an
This was
amended
something-
motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Yes. Sorry, I was trying to get that to shut off my phone.
Okay. So you would then, since there's a motion and a second on the amendment, you would discuss the amendment now if there is any discussion.
And what is our expectation with the amendment, with the striking of it? To do
The
what?
item that is asked to be taken out of it is under dispute. It's a personal matter between me and the Housing Authority, and I emailed Vanessa, and she never emailed me back. So I'm not really sure where we're at with that. Like, I've disputed what's on this piece of paper, and I did tell her that, and I got no response. So it puts me in a weird space as a board member.
And I'm making the motion based on based on Chris's suggestion to do so.
Yeah, I did talk to Mr. Ferry before the meeting about what we should do about it.
Okay, there's an amendment. There was an amendment to the motion on the floor to strike item 8 from resolution 17.
Yes, and I recuse myself from voting, obviously, because it pertains to me.
No, Chris, we're voting on the amendment.
You're voting on the amendment, so
Can I ask you a question?
You sure
So
can.
If we strike it, it doesn't resolve it, it just gets postponed till a later date, is that
That's
what we're
true,
assuming?
yeah.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yes.
Yes, if the Housing Authority would like to pursue it, like I said, I emailed Vanessa about it. I was in contact with her, but she never emailed me back, so
it'll have to get resolved one way or the other.
Right, okay. Works for me.
Our only conundrum is the fact that this has nothing to do with the disputed number, whether it's right or wrong. It's simply a matter of a HUD requirement that we write off uncollected debts to satisfy the auditor. It has nothing to do with whether anybody's right or wrong at this point in time, and that can be resolved at a later date. And it doesn't affect what we're trying to do. Doesn't affect either anybody's rights. It just is an auditor's requirement that we write off uncollected debts before the end of the year. So,
Okay, but my problem with that is if you write this off as it stands, and someday perhaps I need to move into another housing authority somewhere else, I nationally will be barred from renting from housing because this is still going to be on there, whether it's right or wrong. I mean, it could be amended, I suppose.
Yes, it
If it's
could be,
resolved.
if,
once it's resolved, it could be.
Right.
It would
But
be-
my objection is there's been no litigation and no communication from the housing authority in response to my email.
if the resolution is passed, we could always go back and look at it and it could be corrected because it all stays in the system.
So I made the motion to amend. I'm going to stand by that motion.
Any other discussion? I'll call for a vote. On the amendment, I vote no. Marcia?
I'll vote yes, knowing that we can correct it. I'll take one out.
You take 8 out.
Or, well, line 8 out, yes, one item out.
Whether we're amending it or not.
Okay, I vote yes.
That's what you're
Okay.
I
Jane?
can't.
Yes.
Okay. the motion
I was
carries.
just confused for a minute where we were.
Okay, the amendment carries
Because
3-1.
discussion in between.
With that, I'll go back to the original motion and ask for a vote to approve all 3 resolutions with the one line exception. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, resolution number 20. Chris, you want to explain
20 and 21.
20 and 21?
Okay, so those 2 resolutions emanate, go back a little from a historical perspective. So I submitted a waiver request to HUD. Ultimately, we learned here recently that HUD has its own protocols about the manner in which they do things. And with respect to that waiver request, they don't want to act on a solicitor's letter. They want to act on something that is submitted by the executive director via a resolution of the board. So that's one option. So ultimately, they notified Vanessa with respect to that and then followed that up with a written email where these 2 resolutions are examples that are set forth from the HUD individual that was communicating with Vanessa with respect to our options. So essentially, HUD wants you to create a formal plan. So the 2 resolutions identify 2 of the options. The third option would be to resubmit the waiver request through Vanessa with some sort of a specific plan attached to that. So that's the caveat that they created. So you don't have a resolution with respect to that, or at least a sample one, because you'd have to develop your own language for whatever you were going to add to the waiver. So those are the 3 things that were suggested by HUD. Of course, I suppose there's a 4th that she mentioned, which is if we can come up with something on our own, which, to be honest with you, I can't think of off the top of my head what that would be, but they indicated that they would entertain that. The individual that I communicated with back in November, I think, is at this level. The individual that's communicating with us now is above that person, I think. One thing that she did indicate is that she's willing, apparently under the new administration, they're not allowed to travel here or whatever. So she's offered to do a Zoom or some sort of a video conference that would include Joe, myself, Vanessa, and we could have one other board member participate in that. So that is another option for us. That doesn't create any board action to do that. If you were inclined to want to have that proceed and then deliberate on these types of things at a later meeting, now I guess would be another potential option for you. It really depends upon what the board wants to do. These particular resolutions The one resolution would essentially be that we don't offer we cancel the vouchers, we eliminate our relationship with Common Roots. There's no conflict then. Once that happens, we would, according to HUD, we're obligated to be able to put these people in a new situation, and we would be responsible for some costs associated with that. So that's what that option, at least in the manner in which they suggested it. The other option, while you might be able to pass the resolution, you can't force any of the action because that would require Joe not to be a board member. So he'd either have to resign on his own, or the city council would have to remove him and put somebody else in. But that takes action from somebody else. That's not, while you could indicate that, hey, that's what you would like to see happen, you don't have any ability to make it happen. So that's the second one. And then the third one would be if you wanted to pass a formal resolution that says to do what I already did, but to do it again through Vanessa, and then to attach some sort of a plan with respect to the manner in which we would proceed with Joe on the board, what his relationship would be with Common Roots, that type of thing, and the manner in which he would vote on things and such. I know that when I submitted my request before, I kind of looked at it from a common sense perspective. If they were to grant the waiver, then Joe wouldn't be able to vote on anything that dealt with appropriations for those particular vouchers. Wouldn't be able to vote on anything associated with Common Roots, and we'd essentially create what attorneys call a Chinese wall between Joe and his wife with respect to business between the two entities. But it looks to me like what HUD wants is a more detailed plan of what we would be doing. To be honest with you, I think the easiest way to be able to develop that would be to have a meeting with this HUD individual to try to pin them down as to what specific language they're looking for, which is a question that I asked back in November, but they weren't willing to say back then. So, and I will say, with respect to the communication that we got, and they're pretty much telling us, hey, this is our problem, we need to figure it out. So we do. So Vanessa's put together the language from that message into two of the resolutions for you guys to deliberate about. And then there's the third option that I described, so you could create your own resolution off of that, or you could direct us to have the meeting and do something at the next meeting with respect to it. So that's the legal end of it. As to what the board wants to do, that's for you to deliberate on and give us some direction as to how you want us to proceed. But I think HUD has laid out what they're expecting from us. So we do need to do something. I don't know that there is there's not a deadline from them to us with respect to when we have to respond. Probably there is some, there's a jam up, I would imagine, for Vanessa because there's paperwork that she does for the vouchers. I suspect, I don't know,
There's
when that gets turned in.
two renewals coming up.
So that would be, from a timing perspective, I think that would be impacted. Obviously, if we decided that, we needed to gather information from HUD, then one of the questions would be is how do we deal with the renewals and things of that sort. So I'll take any questions I can try to answer. And Marcia, you may know more. You know more about how they work down there than I do. But that's at least what we got out of it.
I have a question.
Sure.
I think like there's not been enough clarification. Number one, I still don't really understand what the conflict of interest is. Like what he could possibly vote on that would affect Congress. So maybe we can talk about that maybe outside of this meeting.
Well,
but the
a good example would be last month. Last month, he made the motion to increase the payment standards for Section 8. In HUD's mind, that is a conflict of interest because the payment vouchers go to Common Roots.
But
So
that's for all of Section 8, not just
doesn't
Common
matter,
Roots.
it affects common roots.
Okay, so we could have said, hey, Joe, you can't vote on this because.
Again, anytime he asks questions or gets involved financially or any way with Section 8, they view that as a conflict of interest. The same way as after that was passed, he made the comment, oh, and then we can maybe rescind that or move it back in 6 months or something. Again, talking about finances. So when you're asking me, those are the kind of things I see and know HUD will see and say are part of the conflict of interest. Conflict of interest for HUD is really important. They really get hung up on it. And they're going to, anytime, and again, no disrespect, Joe, but every month you are speaking out in regard to Section 8 and getting very passionate about things that could affect common roots. And in their mind, that would be an issue.
So here's where I think it might be a good idea, and I don't know if this is a motion, but to have Chris draft a policy regarding conflict of interest for the board so that we are clear on when we're supposed to recuse ourselves.
That's very good.
Most board members should.
But we don't have a policy, and I think it would be good, especially given the scenario that you're laying out, it would be good for all of us to know and be clear when we should recuse ourselves. What's wrong with having that policy?
Don't disagree, but under the state ethics and everything, and you've been on the redevelopment for years, people should know as board members, council should know when they hold meetings at Chippers at night after the regular meeting that isn't posted and 3 members are there, that's a sunshine violation in an ethics act.
Wow.
So again, I'm just saying.
Well,
I got
easy
phone
answer to
calls.
that, I can put that together.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, and my other question was,
Same.
because I'm confused, was there a waiver requested for Joe?
I requested a
You
waiver.
did request a
I
waiver.
did
Can
request
the
a waiver.
board have a copy of that request and what HUD's response was? Because
You
we
can.
don't have one.
You
I
can.
just feel like all of this was done
Yeah.
sort of behind the scenes and we don't
Yeah.
have any of the information.
I did find, Joe and I have been communicating about it. I brought one for Joe. I'll make sure that I email you, the rest of you, what I sent. We did talk about this at prior board meetings, for me to have the authority to send the letter, which I did. And it was based upon communications that we got from HUD back in November, which I'm pretty sure I shared the communications, and we followed that. Now they're asking for a little bit more than they asked for in November, is really what it comes down to. And that does happen. And they're in the position, I guess, to be able to tell me that's what they want. So, and I'm not in a position to be able to tell them no. But yeah, I can certainly provide you with all that.
Well, just because it would be helpful for the board to
Sure.
have all of the
Yeah.
I guess I want to make a motion to table these resolutions in
But
favor
you don't need to make a motion to table them. Nobody's made a motion to.
to accept.
Yeah, so I mean, so there's nothing on the floor yet with respect to, the resolutions that, and again, Vanessa prepares drafts of things for you to be able to see them. You folks are the ones that make the motions and do things with them. So, so there's nothing there. If somebody wants to make a motion to approve one of those resolutions, then there need to be a second, and then there need to be discussion and then a vote. I don't know whether we're going to have that or not. That's for the 5 of you to figure out how you want to proceed. You can either move on one of these, create one of your own, or direct us to have a meeting with HUD based upon the representation that was made in the last message that I saw, that they would be willing to talk. Or maybe there's something else you can think of that you'd want to do, but that's generally,
But no, we need to be moving though.
We
Again,
do need to be
I
moving.
just caution the group, and I've said this before, and I know people don't take it seriously. If HUD does not feel that we and or the city are doing our best to meet this requirement, they have, and this was one of the issues that caused it in other authorities, taken the authority away from the municipality and had it operated by other entities. That does happen. It's happened in Northwest PA. So again, I just want to make sure that we're moving forward, getting good advice, and making a decision. And again, we need it for these clients whose Section 8 vouchers are coming up, because we can't keep them in limbo.
I guess my question is, if there's a third option, why don't we have a third resolution outlining that option?
Because the two resolutions that are there are really verbatim from the language that HUD provided. The third option, we'd have to come up with the language ourselves. So that's dependent upon what you guys want to do. Then we would either draft language for you or just incorporate language that you use right here. So.
I mean, technically that's not true. So Chris did share with me the email that HUD sent to Vanessa, and this was on Monday. And they laid out 2 examples of a possible plan that we could submit to them. One example was the waiver request along with the plan as you outlined. The other example was the one regarding common roots, which is the resolution number 21. There was no example that said you should pass a resolution asking Joe to resign. There was never, in the email I got, there was a mention of, hey, this person at HUD said, hey, I did talk to Joe a few months ago and we talked about him resigning. I thought that might be a reasonable thing to do. But when they specify, here are some plans you can submit, one was a waiver request, the other was the common roots resolution. So Sina's question is, well, if one of the examples is a waiver request, why, Vanessa put these resolutions together, why wasn't that offered as a resolution? I think that was the question. Especially
I think the answer to that is that after the waiver language is there, it says it needs a plan attached to it. You folks would need to come up with a plan. I don't think there was any intention not to tell you that there were other options.
But I guess
obviously that's what I'm doing.
And my concern is I wouldn't know about this had I not reached out to you, who then tracked down the email and sent it to me. All I would know is what these 2 resolutions say. So if I hadn't inquired, and presumably none of the other board members have seen this email, we would be under the impression that this is exactly what HUD is asking of us, right?
Well, not here, because I would have been reporting to you what I reported to you when we talked.
Just based on the packet.
Yeah.
I will recuse myself from whatever vote, if there is a vote, and I won't talk with more than one other person on the board about it at Chippers, if that ever comes up. But I will say, and Chris said that my input on this is important, because obviously it's dealing with me. So I'm happy to follow the suggestion of the HUD representative here, Jacqueline Molinaro-Thompson, who said she would be happy to meet with us, as Chris outlined. So to me, that seems like the logical next step. Why don't we just get together and meet with her and see if we can hash out a plan?
Look to the other board members for their opinion.
It sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, I think we should meet with her, although I think it should be the whole board. I think everybody should be on the same page and have the same information, especially since this information wasn't available to the whole board until he just mentioned it. So we didn't even know we had a third option. I read this packet and it was like, wait a second, this is the only 2 options we have. So
if you...
in the interest of everyone knowing what's going on, I think that the board should be present.
So here's your options with respect to that. If you have 2 board members meet with this individual, then the board members will be able to ask questions and get feedback from the individual. If we have all of the board there is an exception that permits, like in a seminar type of, when you're receiving information only, we can have the whole board attend. The problem with those is being able to keep control. It can't be any deliberation, can't be any talking amongst board members or anything like that. It has to be the presenter presenting whatever happened, the issues. So that is an option for you, and I do think that this individual's willing to meet with the whole. I don't think she has any restrictions on who she's willing to meet with. I think the advantage to just having 2 is there can be a little bit more dialogue with respect to information that gets passed, including the board members that happen to be there. That's up to you. That's your call as to what you're most comfortable doing. We can set it up such that everybody's participating. I just would have to make sure that I muzzle all of you with respect to.
What if it were a work session?
Well, I guess could we all each individually ask her questions? As long as we're not talking to each other, we're not deliberating. Would the board still be allowed to ask her questions?
the dilemma that I have with that is that while you're not expressly communicating with each other, you can imply things through those questions. I don't want to even get close to anybody being able to say we're doing something wrong.
Is there an option to do this as a special meeting and do the public announcement so that we can all be there? It's just focused on this issue
She
with
won't
this
do it.
representative.
Yeah, I was
guarantee
going to
she
say,
will not
that's
do it
her,
in public.
I mean, as to whether she's willing to participate in that fashion, I don't know that.
So the email
I think
to,
she did state in the email that she would not, or it had to be scheduled. I'm not sure. She did say something about if it was more than one board, what would have to happen.
it
She
says
was
it,
talking public.
the email does say it can be a work session. Please consult with your solicitor to determine how to set a meeting.
Yeah, when she uses the term work session, the public meeting law has its own defined version of that. I know that phrase gets thrown around a lot, and it's got a different legal meaning than the folks actually use it here. I think we'd have to make clear to her, if we were going to have a special meeting that was open to the public, we'd have to make sure she understood that so she could tell us, whether she would be okay doing that or not. And we certainly can inquire about that. But I wouldn't want to surprise her. That wouldn't be good. So she could tell us. If she's good with that, then you guys can. It would just take two of you to make a written request for a special meeting. If she's not good with that, then our only real ways of doing this are through the two options that I described.
Okay, so it sounds like we start by asking her if she's open to doing a public special meeting. If she's not, then we figure out what two board members. For myself, I'm obviously going to be one of them that's there. And so we try to find out who the other board member would be there so we could ask questions.
That's right.
And then we would just relay the rest to the remaining board members. So maybe just to expedite things a little bit, is there another board member who would be interested in being a part of that meeting?
I would.
So in the event that she's not open to a special meeting that's public, we could do the type of meeting you're suggesting, would be Sina and I, yourself, and Vanessa.
You could, if that, I don't know, are anybody else interested in so yeah, those are the options.
Okay. Again, do I need to make a motion on this?
There's no motion.
Definitely no motion on it.
No motions from you. I mean, there isn't any board actions that's required for me to reach out to this person to schedule that. I mean, if ultimately she says that she's willing to do that with the whole board, then I'll have to communicate that, and then there's a way for you to be able to create a special meeting.
And the fact that she's going to be virtual makes it, particularly for a public meeting, difficult.
Yeah.
Because she cannot travel.
Yeah, and I don't know who all she would be. I guess I'd have to ask her who else I assume every time I've done anything with them, they have other people that are always a part of that kind of stuff.
Well, don't we have the setup here? And I think I thought I heard from council we can use the city council space if that would work better, if it had a better setup for a virtual meeting.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe there's other options to work with it.
Okay, consensus on the board to move forward with a request from HUD officials in Pittsburgh for a meeting to discuss what plan might be attached to any request for a waiver. Is that correct?
I think the meeting would be for you to learn more about the options.
What their options are.
What they want in the plan.
Right, what they want in a plan.
Right.
Correct. We have a consensus to proceed in that manner.
Should I even nod in a consensus?
No, there's no vote necessary.
Yes, I agree.
I've got my marching orders. I'll get together with Vanessa and we'll work out how to get that put together.
I think we've moved as far as we can on that until Chris gets in touch with the appropriate officials in HUD and see if that kind of Zoom, she mentioned Teams, there is a whole
Yeah.
variety of communication mechanisms. So we'll let that up to Chris. Moving on to the treasurer's report, Vanessa.
If anybody has questions, I'll have to pull it up. Do you have any specific
Anybody
questions?
have any questions on the treasurer's report? Any of the bills that were paid? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
So
Move.
Second.
Second.
No, sorry.
No. Marcia moved. Sienna second. All in favor say aye.
Tried.
Aye.
Report of committees, we don't have unfinished business, Vanessa. New business,
I don't know if it's appropriate to ask for an intermission, because I got a couple items I'd like to raise under new business. I'm joking about that, but you think we're talking about parking or something? We're spending so much time doing this. I'm going to talk about a few things that I'd like to see us discuss at the April meeting.
go ahead.
As long as there's a consensus. First of all, I'd like to hold the elections for the board chair. Make sure we get that on the agenda for the April meeting.
Fine.
I would like to have some sort of plan outlined for the annual housekeeping inspections. A procedure involving a written report to the residents and specific days and times notification. I would like to see a plan for the bus stop.
again, I'm not sure we can do that, but we could reach out to
As
Kat.
Gretchen reported, she reached out to Cata as a city council person. Cata got back to her right away and said, yes, we'd love to do that. We'd love to work with the housing authority on that. And so now they're waiting on a response from us.
I mean, we can reach out, but I'm just saying, let's be careful, because it's their bus stop, and I know we had problems last time getting the follow-through, so,
Right. I've seen the email. They're willing to work with us. I say we should move it forward.
well, not disagreeing.
I would also like to see the minutes for the January 29th special meeting on the agenda for approval. I asked about that last time. I asked in emails. It's continually marginalized. The reason given at the last meeting was because Chris wasn't going to be here and hadn't read the minutes. So it's been over a month. I think it's a simple thing, just reviewing those minutes and approving them so we can get them posted on the website. Again, I don't know if I need a motion on this. I would like to get the board packet, at least a week in advance. It's really hard for me when we get these board packets 24 hours ahead of time. I have a work schedule. It's really difficult for me to review everything in a 60-page board packet within 24 hours. My understanding is it's standard procedure for these things to be given to board members at least, a couple days in advance, if not a week. So I would like to see it a week in advance. I don't know if we need a consensus, we need a motion.
I wouldn't agree to that. I won't put the pressure on the staff.
I don't think staff has
especially,
the capacity.
especially with the vacancies we have. I'm sorry, I can't agree to that.
Well, I agree with that because a day is not enough time to go through, especially with the resolutions that we were presented today, and especially, and this is just for me, if I had known what was going to be on that resolution, I could have followed up with Vanessa and discussed what was personal in private instead of at a public meeting. So that is personal to me, but also, there's just not enough time. Like this whole thing with Joe, we could have done research. Each board member could have brought research with us to the board meeting about that third option that we didn't even know about.
Okay, may I, if you do it 1 week in advance, there are some meetings that are on the 8th of the month. There is no way that we could possibly get anything ready. We don't have bank statements in or anything. I can try Friday or Monday.
Okay.
Okay?
I would do Friday or even Monday, but Friday would be preferable.
Okay.
Continuing on, so we're doing our first public recording of the meeting. As far as I know, it's the first public recording of a housing authority meeting, at least from recent memory. We've talked about this before. We talked about it at the special meeting as far as where to post it. The initial plan right now that we all agreed to is to post this on a website. Also, John has created a YouTube page for the Housing Authority where he's going to post the recording. I also think it would be great if we had a Facebook page so that in the future we could live stream these meetings and people could watch them as they happen on Facebook. That could also be an informational page where we could post agendas, we could post any updates about openings and vacancies and the lists. I mean, there's a lot of things we could do if we had a Facebook page to better communicate with the public. So again, I don't know what we need to have in place to make that happen. I don't know if I need to make an official motion, but again, I'm just asking the board for a consensus that we go ahead and create a Facebook page. And my understanding is John or some other staff person would monitor it and run it.
I think that what you probably ought to do is put that on the agenda for the next meeting so that you can create a procedure for doing that. One of my concerns with respect to those issues is that we want to make sure that it's all housing authority equipment, or because from the right to know law perspective, if it's on your phone or it's on, that becomes a problem. I think it would make sense for whatever you want to create with social media ends of things, to be able to create a procedure, and I think you need to deliberate that. So we should put that on the agenda for the next meeting, and then you can hash that out.
All right. It's going to be a long meeting at the next meeting because I got another agenda item I'd like to put on there. I'd like to extend an invite from the board, and I'm happy to be the board representative with your permission to reach out to the social service agencies. Last meeting we discussed trying to reconnect with them to try to help address some of the bedbug problems. I've talked with them individually. They're open to a meeting, so I think just extending a formal invitation, having that on the agenda, and we can invite representatives of Active Aging and CHAPS and maybe perhaps Center for Family Services, if they're willing to attend. That way we can have a discussion with them about how we could work together to address the bedbug problems, among other things.
I mean, it's a public meeting. They're welcome to come, irrespective of any invitations or anything like that.
But I'm saying we'd set aside a special item on the agenda where we can have a discussion with them.
And I mean, I suppose that you could come to a consensus now with respect to who you want to invite and if you want to do that type of thing, or depending upon whether there's a lot of deliberation that's involved with that, then maybe you need to put that off. But
well, I'm proposing to reach out to Active Aging, CHAPS, and CFS.
Sounds like a good idea.
Again, I don't know that there's a problem with that. Again, given our meetings and looking at today's time, we need to be very clear with them and very clear ourselves as to how much time we want to devote to that. I mean, this is not going to be a 1 hour or 2 hour meeting with them.
I just think it's good for our relationship with our partner agencies to
disagree.
personally, as the board, invite them in.
I don't disagree.
So we put that on the agenda for the April meeting?
If you're going to do that, I would suggest that you put them on early in the agenda so that they're not waiting around to get to talk about whatever you're going to do. But you don't need a motion for that.
Okay. Two more things. This relates to the staffing shortage. So I think everybody knows because I included everybody on an email. So I've been reaching out to other authorities, not for the sake of the Housing Authority, actually, because as Marcia mentioned, I'm also on the Redevelopment Authority, and so I've been reaching out to other RDAs in the area just to find out what they're doing and the kinds of stuff they're doing, because we're trying to get some ideas for the Meadville RDA. And I happened to speak to Penny Campbell, who's the Executive Director of the Clarion County Redevelopment Authority, which is also a joint agency, so it's a redevelopment/housing authority. We talked mostly about RDA stuff, but housing authority stuff did come up. I had mentioned the fact that we're having this staffing shortage and it's creating some difficulties for us. And I mentioned the fact that one of the obstacles has been that we have to go through civil service to hire. And Penny said, actually, that's not true, that there was a recent decision, and I forwarded the copy of that to Chris, so he's seen it, that the civil service requirement is not, in fact, in place, that we can hire by contract. So when we've been told and we've heard, and again, it's not to say anybody's been deceitful about it. Perhaps this is like a ruling that just kind of went under people's radar. But it does open up possibilities for us. We don't have to hire just strictly through the civil service program. We can also hire people by contract. So my hope is that will open up opportunities to hire people and get these positions filled. and expedite the process a little bit. So that's more just kind of an announcement. And then the other thing that came up in that discussion with Ms. Campbell is she also mentioned that it's that authority in particular, but it's also standard procedure to come up with what she called interagency cooperative agreements. So, for instance, if there is a position that's empty, and we have a couple positions here that are empty and need to be filled, we could work in partnership with another authority who could temporarily, on an interim basis, fill those positions for us. And then also, she said, in addition to that, help us hire those positions and then actually also help us train those people. So that to me was a real eye-opener. I thought, because a lot of these things that we're getting stuck on because we have a staff shortage, there are a lot of things we can't do at this point. I thought that could be a game changer for us. So here's what I would propose. I would propose, or maybe make a motion, to have Chris draft a possible agreement that we could then deliberate on in the April meeting with an interagency agreement to, again, on an interim basis, staff those positions that are currently empty. And I propose working with the Clarion County Housing Authority just because they have experience doing this.
They would have to come here, Joe.
What do you mean?
They would have to travel here.
The way it was explained to me is that basically the solicitors and you and Penny could get together and work out a draft, present it to us as a board. We would deliberate on it, and then we would vote to proceed or not.
But that's not getting the work done. That's the agency. But they would have to send staff here. Staff would actually have to come
Yeah,
here.
that's the whole idea, is they would fill in where we're missing staff.
I think that what would, let me explain a couple things so that we're clear, and I'll try to be real brief with respect to this. The option to have your own independent contracts has always been there. I suspect that many years ago, this authority decided to go the civil service route, which is certainly nothing wrong with that. Many do. The distinction, if you do use your own private contracts, it's not like just me hiring somebody in normal sense. I mean, when we hire people, oftentimes not a written contract, but the law for the housing authority requires us to have a written contract if we do decide to go that way. So if we're going to hire a specific employee outside of civil service, you would have to approve a contract, so there would be a process to that and getting it on the agenda, things of that sort, interviewing people, to get to that point. What Joe's talking about on the second end of this is I'm sure you've seen a lot of this kind of stuff. Municipal entities commonly have interagency agreements with respect to providing specific services. I imagine the city's got a whole bunch of them. So that is a feasible way to proceed. The thing is that the way that you would proceed with that wouldn't necessarily be a motion right now. What you do the motion on is the end product with respect to, you would be directing myself or Vanessa to negotiate with some entity in order to be able to get the terms of what they're willing to do. Because right now you don't have any terms. You don't know who they would offer or how they would offer it or any of that type of stuff. That would have to be figured out up front as to whether that's even feasible for them. And I suspect for them to give us terms, we'd have to outline to them, hey, this is what we need help doing, and this is what that person would do here, to see whether they can even do that. The board certainly can direct us to do that. It may be that, the board wants to deliberate about whether they want to proceed that way or not first. Or you can direct me now if that's, you want to look into those things. I know you talked to the lady in Clarion. There would be other options, I imagine, Erie or, other places that are probably closer that might, be easier. I don't know the size of the relative authorities that are around here, but that would be the process. And again, you'd have to have a contract that would be negotiated and approved by both boards with respect to that. And I don't know. I suppose you could be doing two things at one time. I know Vanessa's working on trying to get people, and maybe, that path can go that way, and you can have us explore whether there's options with some of these agencies. I don't have any issue with that. If you want me to do that, I can report back. I whatever information I get, I can forward email-wise to you so that you can see that in advance. And then,
I mean, I'd like to initiate that process. Again, I'd like to hear from the other board members if they're interested as well. And I agree, I think you can have two things at once. In the ideal situation, Vanessa's able to fill those positions sooner rather than later, then this becomes a moot issue and we don't need it. But in the meantime, while those positions are open and some things are falling through the cracks, I think we need to be proactive on it.
I think the other thing that I heard, and I think it was Marcia that mentioned it, is it sounds like we'd have to. You're thinking Section 8. I'm assuming Vanessa has to get that to a point where we can even if we were going to do that, it has to be. We got to finish whatever we're doing right now in order for somebody to be able to take that and move forward with it. So there would be a time issue there, I would imagine.
So my understanding is you can do these agreements not just for the Section 8 position, but also we have openings right now for a project manager, right? Or what are the other vacant positions?
I'm working on the civil service to replace the one position that I'm moving up to another position.
So we have two other positions, and just so I'm clear, what are those positions again?
We have a property manager that's open. I'm promoting one employee to that, and I'm hiring a VOTEC student to replace that position.
So the property manager position is going to be filled in the near future?
Yes.
And that's the only other vacant
Yes.
executive or administrative?
Yeah, the only one we're really dealing with is Section 8. That's the only one I'm dealing with. So it's not like we're like short several staff. The Section 8 program is the only one right now, but nobody could walk in here and pick up because that's what I've been trying to do. So I'm getting it organized, I'm getting it on a schedule. So even if you did that, there's no way anybody could walk in here and do anything different than what I'm doing.
But it would take the load off of you and we'd have somebody else to do it.
No, it would not. Because I still have to work with that person to get things organized with making the notifications to the tenants, the landlords through the system, et cetera, et cetera. It is not organized for anybody to step in and do anything. And I'm working on that, and I'm handling it, and we've made provisions. We're making communications with people. So I need some time to work with it to get it there. The last couple months, I've been doing really well. We've been getting inspections scheduled. We've been getting research papers out. We've been getting papers back. Everybody's been paid. We're getting there. So having an agency walk in now is not going to help me.
I have a comment though.
Because I'm pretty much doing a lot of that after I walk out the door.
Like if we're so outside of Section 8 though, there's other things that like we've been told we can't do because we don't have the staff. Those other things could also get done.
What other things, Sina?
Like amending the bylaws. We were told to put that on hold because this is more important and we can't do that right now. But if we had other staff, they could help us do that.
Bylaws aren't anything the staff really does. And there's already a draft copy that can be done. Bylaws only affect the board.
Right, but you told us we had to put that on hold because Section 8 was more important and you needed to focus on that.
Yes.
So if you had other staff coming in from other authorities to help you,
that isn't going to free me up, Sina.
But it would free them up to help.
Not necessarily.
Then you could focus on Section 8 and someone else could be doing the job that you say you don't have time for.
Writing a policy?
Yeah, writing a policy.
Well, I mean, we've had people write policies. Writing the bylaws is something that is a board. It's not a housing authority policy. It's just a board policy.
So why did we have to wait on it then? Now I'm confused.
Why is it necessary to have the bylaws done now when we have other policies that we need to get done for the tenants?
But if you're saying that this is a policy the board has to do and you don't have anything to do with
the board
bylaws,
the board really doesn't have to do it. There's really nothing wrong with the current bylaws.
In your opinion, yes.
And Chris has a draft of them. So if you wanted to move forward with it, Chris could review it, give you the draft, and then you can decide what you want to do.
Okay, but correct me if I'm wrong, any other board member that was at that meeting, you put that on hold saying Section 8 was more important, so we're not dealing with that.
Yes, it is. The tenants are more important.
I didn't say they weren't more important, but now you're telling me that that's not something that you even do. The board needs to do it.
No, the staff would prepare it for the board a draft, and then they could take it from there.
So having extra staff would help you do that.
No,
How? How does
No.
that not help?
Okay, I think we've exhausted this subject.
Well, no,
I don't know, we've exhausted.
I asked for
this
Chris to
subject.
move
doesn't have a
forward on
reason
this.
to.
You did, and Chris will move forward on it, okay?
Yeah.
An interagency draft, if it appears to be feasible. And I find it hard to believe that other agencies that are operating with the same number of caveats that we have with HUD are going to have extra staff that are going to be able to come up here and work, on Section 8 or public housing or whatever it is. They're probably about as strapped as we are. So I have no objection for looking into it to see if it's feasible. But we're just going back and forth now. So I think Chris has direction to take a look at that.
I do.
Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I love this. I'll stay. It's fine.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you do. And Marcia seconded it. It's non-debatable. We are adjourned.
Whatever. Doesn't matter.